Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
All right, let me go ahead and call the meeting to order. First up is review and approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion and a second to review or to approve the agenda?
I make a motion that we review and approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Anybody have anything that they would like to add?
Nope.
If not, all those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 Ruby, you need to unmute for me.
I said aye.
Okay, thanks.
There you are.
I figured you did back there, but all right, Robbie, do you want to walk us through the explanation before I open the public hearing?
Yeah, the reason why we're having this hearing, this is the second public hearing for the fiscal year 2024 budget. Takes effect July 1st this year through June 30th of 2024. And this is the second public hearing. It's been duly advertised. And you've all been given the budget packet for the fiscal year 2024. This has also been published on the website and available for the public for review at City Hall and in my weekly newsletter as well. So it's been widely publicized. So part of the agenda today for the budget is going to include the budget memo as well as the budget documents, which includes the statement of revenues and expenditures, and also the fees. So we want to talk about point out some changes that we have in the fees when we get to that point. But the budget only changed slightly from the first read in the beginning of June. But the best way to look and see where we're at is at the bottom of the statement of revenues and expenditures. I can do a screen share. I have to go back there if you need me to. I'd be happy to do that and share this. But
hang on 1 second for me too, Robbie. Dana, I missed this part. Please let the record reflect that 3 of our council members thought it important enough to come to a meeting to review our budget, and the mayor very much appreciates that Councilwoman Searle, Lowe, and Foster are here for this meeting.
I think the clerk has that recorded.
Thanks.
Okay.
Continue, please.
Oh, and so as far as the budget goes, the statement of revenues and expenditures at the very bottom is the table that I created that shows a comparison for all the funds, which includes the general fund, the debt service fund, hotel motel fund, technology fund, grants fund, capital equipment, T-SPOS, and reserves. And as we stated before, this is going to change between now and in the end of this month. And, our auditors come in August, we do an audit, we'll go back and do budget amendments to make any corrections that we need to. But myself and the finance director work toward making sure we try to capture as many revenues that we think are going to come in, as well as the expenditures through the end of the month, and get as close as we can. So, our amended budget, or I'm sorry, year-to-date revenues total for all funds is 11,618,285. So that's 11,618,285. We are going to budget 11,125,312 for all funds. I just focus mainly on the general fund. General fund is in at $5,051,000, and we're budgeting 4.573016. That's 4,573,016. And the other funds I can go into detail if you want to and go over those, but I just don't want to get into the details unless there are any questions. Part and parcel to the budget are the fees that we want to make sure that's part of when you adopt the budget, you're adopting the fees.
Hang on a sec before you get the fees, just to be clear, there's nothing really meaningful changing in the budget itself other than just the kind of truing up that we continue to do. So unless anybody has any questions there, we'll just move on to the fees.
I'm good.
Tom, before we go forward, Robbie, I think you misstated when you were talking about the total of all the funds. You said 11,000. I think you meant 11 million, and then whatever the rest of the numbers were.
Yeah,
good catch. Yeah, it's 11 million, not 11,000. That's for all the funds. But again, our general fund's only 4.5. The rest of the funds, 4.5 million. The rest of the funds are like T-SPOS, capital reserves that make up that total of 11 million.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the fees. So we had some changes there and some things that we're pegging numbers on finally. So good to go through the changes and the new stuff there.
Yeah, there's only about 4 changes. The biggest one is, you know, the mayor and council have already talked about, and is the DCT fees, which were part of when we were talking about TDRs earlier this year or a couple months ago. That's at the very back of the fee schedule, and we can talk about that when we get to that point. But I'm flipping through. Sorry about that. Want to get to the other. I went through and looked at all the changes that were from last year to this year. One of the other changes that have been added is, we talked about it, is when we have film special permits for films, we added that $50,000 bond for those that are going to be using our gravel roads, so we can get that up front. So that's a new one. Administrative services, when there's no permit required, like if somebody's going to do some sort of filming on a private property where there's no permit, but we need to make sure that there's administrative services involved with that. That went from $200 to $250. That's one small change. Moving on a little bit further, special event permit fees. That's where most of the fees, other than the DTC fees, changed just by basically between 50 and 100 and then $500. So special event applications, when people put a special event application in up to 500, it was $250. It's going to go to 300, and you don't have to write these down. We've got them. It should be in your packet as well. And then if there's attendees between 501 and 2,500, that used to be 400, and that's now 500, and 2,500 plus to 5,000, that used to be 1,000. That's going to be now $1,500. And then 5,001 attendees to 10,000, it used to be 1,500. Now it's 2,000. And each additional 10,000 participants or attendees, that is, that'll be $1,500. That went up from 1,000 to $1,500. So those are some fees that changed in special events that we increased, because we've been having a lot of special events. And then, as I touched on earlier, is the base density transfer charge, the DTCs. That's going to be $19,242.50 per density unit. That's what was factored in. And then DCC, the perpetual transfer fee, is 1% of the sales price of every transfer of any property and 2.5% of residential rent. So,
and just a little bit of background on both of those things. Doug talked about it a tiny bit when we were talking about the actual ordinance when we passed it. The DTC charge is what somebody can pay in lieu of a transfer of development right. It is based on the median price of lots that include both undeveloped and developed lots over the course of the past year, basically, in a formulaic pattern that the Conservancy actually is going to do for us under an MOU. The long story short of that is that it is higher than the actual average transaction price of property right now. So the fee that we're charging is higher than it would cost to actually buy land. But again, we're providing a convenience by letting somebody write a check. And so that's the price of the convenience. The transfer fee, the percentage transfer fee, with that one, we looked at the net present value basically of that string of payments that you would get, because you get a point on every transaction on the property forevermore that goes into the TDR buying fund. And the net present value of that is about twice what the DTC price is. So again, we're providing a convenience to the developer, but we're getting more money because we're providing that convenience. And Lori, I see the questions for me.
I think I get it. So if a developer wants to buy an extra unit to develop on his property and there are no TDRs for sale, or he prefers to come directly to the city,
right,
for each one of those development units is $19,242.
That's right.
If you were to buy the TDR would be much less than that.
That's right.
But we're providing a convenience for them to just come and not have to deal with that, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay,
yep.
Got it.
And you know, the other alternative at some level, right? Everybody in every development has some level of offsite preservation that they could do. So they could buy land and put some preservation offsite. But what you're going to find, I think, is that, you know, these developments are going to come in and on their 30% want to do some extra, right? Even Serenby, for example, has talked about maybe doing that in a couple of spots, and it'll just be easier for them right? To know exactly how much this is going to cost. They can put it in a pro forma. They don't have to do any extra work and just do that thing. The other benefit to the city is that once we start getting a cash flow from this kind of stuff, you can bond against that cash flow, particularly the percentage, right? So say Harrison Merrill comes in and he's talking about using the percentage program, you can see upfront basically how much money you're going to be getting per year forever, right? And we could go out, or the conservancy could go out and bond against that and actually get money up front to buy a significant chunk of development rights right now, more so than you would ever do inside of the TDR program. So it gives us more flexibility to advance the preservation.
So I understand it's just a budget meeting, but is this ready to be activated yet? If someone were to come to us and want to buy a DTC unit and
This is
Has
the
their
last
check
step
ready?
for the city, right?
Okay.
So
does
for
it
us now, all of the mechanisms are in place to do this. The last detail, and this is something that Rick has been working on with Doug and Mike and I, there's an MOU between the Conservancy then and the city, because you want this to be kind of a non-politicized thing, right? The city council will set the criteria by which this program is weighted, right? Like what we want them to protect. But the Conservancy actually carries it out under an MOU. And that MOU is in kind of final draft phase right now. We're hoping to have it for the council, probably not in July, but in the next meeting. In advance of anybody actually using the program, right? So that's the last little technical detail. But yeah, I mean, this program that we've had supposedly for 15 years now, but weren't actually able to use, will be absolutely ready to use. Somebody came in tomorrow, we could tell them exactly how it worked.
So I've got more questions about that, but it's outside the scope of the budget, so I'm okay with that. We can follow up.
Yeah, that's fine. And I'm happy, anytime you want, we can sit down and kind of walk through all that stuff.
Okay.
Always happy to do that. Anybody else have any questions about that? I mean, again, it's technical, but it's super important to the actual mechanism of preservation in the city. And it's also, the thing that I keep bringing up because I think people have forgotten, the non-developing landowners get a ton of money for this over the course of time. Everybody who doesn't develop basically will be able to sell their development rights at some point, and participate in the upside of this. And the expectation is that those only get more valuable over the course of time as demand drives land prices up, right? So it's a virtuous situation all around.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Robbie, was there anything else on the budget? Because I want to go ahead and open the public hearing and close out.
One more
Yes, ma'am.
question on the budget, on the fees. So are all the, I don't know what to call them, traffic fees in here? I was looking for the $1,000 truck penalty for, driving on roads that don't have trucks on them. Is that in here?
It should be.
Yeah. No, that's a separate adoption for those fees.
Oh,
Gotcha.
It's
fine.
not part of this.
Fines
fee
and
structure.
forfeiture. Okay.
Okay.
So
Dana? Oh,
so
shoot.
the bond and fine schedule is adopted separately, and typically whatever schedule we have just stays in effect until we want to make changes. So it's not adopted on an annual basis or anything like that.
Gotcha.
So Dana, just real quick, just to make sure, the $1,000 thing that Lori's talking about, we had already adopted that, right?
I believe so. I don't work with the courts enough to recall, but I believe we've already adopted that. I can check and verify and let her know.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's been adopted because we already had a person come in and pay.
That's
Oh,
what I
and
thought.
Kevin Degu in the chat just said, yes, it's already adopted. So
Okay.
all set. Thanks, Kevin.
Yay.
And
All right.
I had a
Right.
question.
Mhm.
The only thing I was wondering, we had the short-term rental permit at $100. And I guess that's good. I know we were thinking about some administrative changes, adding, making sure folks had short-term rental insurance, just a few other things. I didn't know if that would cost administratively more time or anything like that. I mean, that's just a question. We need, if that's
Uh,
enough.
Because we can absolutely change that right now if we need to.
Atlanta is $150, I know, for their, and I know it's a big city. A huge budget, but I'm
We've
just,
got a lot of short-term rentals, so, yeah.
and I'm
Dana, what
just
do you
throwing
think?
out,
I think right now where we're at, because the short-term rentals also have to get a business license, so they're paying more than that $100. I feel like our process is going pretty smoothly right now, that I don't necessarily recommend a change in that.
Right.
Again, that's fine with me too, whatever, Camille, you brought it up, if you're okay with that.
yeah,
Camille,
no, I just wanted to make sure time commitment, we weren't, if we're adding a lot of time for staff. But it sounds
Camille,
like
do
it,
you know if, well, Atlanta requires a business license too, though, right? So, yeah.
Mhm.
A lot of places don't. A lot of places don't. I don't know about Atlanta, they may, but a lot of places don't require a business license.
But Dana would be the one that would have the additional administrative work, right?
100%.
He
Yeah.
says she doesn't, it's not a taxing thing right now. Maybe we're good.
Mhm. Yeah, we can watch it and see how that works.
I
Dana.
know Camille is the one that gets
The
the
cost.
upset about short-term rentals more than anybody else probably, so.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure we're capturing extra work if we, the amount of
Yeah, I
work.
think
compensated
capturing
for the
your
work.
hassle factor may be a piece of it too.
Yeah.
We could just put a Camille Low surcharge on it. and just- All right, let me go ahead. I don't think we need to read the public hearing rules because I just don't see a ton of people around that would need them. So I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing and ask if we have any people that have public comment. And Robbie, I'm going to wait for you to do your 360. Looks like we're good.
I was verifying with my backup, Mike, make sure there's nothing in the chat.
All right.
You have
I don't
access
see
to
anything
chat
in the
too.
chat. I'm looking at it right now. So I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and call for a motion in a second to adopt 23-018, which is the 23-24 budget, the fiscal year 24 budget.
I make a motion that we adopt 23-18. Is that correct?
23-018. Yep, that's right.
Okay.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on that? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Lori, I didn't hear you, but
Oh, yes, aye.
okay. That's adopted unanimously. Next up, we have one that we needed to add in just because of the timing. It's 23-021, which is absolutely meaningless at the moment, other than just the fact that we are a party to it, because we get no money because we have no population in Coweta County. But it is their SPLOST negotiation. Robbie, theirs are for 5 years, right?
Yes, I believe it's 5.
Which is good news because unlike Fulton County where they're every 10, we will certainly have population in Coweta County within 5 years and we'll be able to renegotiate around that. But anyway, we need to approve that agreement so that again, we're participants even if we don't get any money. So could I get a motion in a second, please, to adopt 23-021?
Make a motion, we adopt 23-021.
Second.
We have a motion in a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 That is adopted unanimously. Anybody got anything that they want to get off their chest before we adjourn?
Yep.
Always good to see you guys. I'll take a motion in a second to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion in a couple of seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 We stand adjourned at 4:22. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you all at whatever the next meeting is.
Thanks everybody for
Bye,
the special call
guys.
meeting.
Thanks,
Great.
Rick.
Aye.
Thanks, Dana. Bye.
Bye, y'all.